Hello! To continue on with updating some of the old Pyromancy builds, I wanted to go back over the Master Tactician, but because this one's going to be a less common Psyker playstyle, I'm actually going to explain a little bit more. I also didn't explain all the options, and some people just assumed that you couldn't use them. So with the Lina the Slayer build, which is what I'm covering today, now this, if you play a Dogmatic Pyromancer, you can get a +5 to Psi rating from the Eyes of Joyce, but at the moment I'm using the Ethereal Visor because it does a damage increase, and obviously this is a mercenary, so I can't play through that. Currently I've got the Star Mist Scarf because it gives a +2 Psi rating, but there are other options that you could put into here, such as the Vortex Pendant, which will increase your willpower if you're using buffs, or you can use something like the Psi Focus, though I don't like that one because the damage increase is fairly minimum. But this build, it does uniquely a lot of damage because this is a burst fire build, so you will actually proc it a little bit more. So yes, the staffs can critically hit, so you could actually use this to stack some damage quite high. So that is also another very viable option here. Psyker's Breastplate, because I go into heavy, so in one of the exemplar ranks, I take the peak conditioning, and I don't actually level strengths at all. This is just a way that we can get our strength up. One of the items we use here is Warp Surge Broach, but if you use X-Chance or Finest Hour, it is currently bugged, so that will actually prevent this from being used. So if you use Bring It Down your character, and you don't make, say, 7 attacks, you lose all those extra attacks. They don't carry over. This was something they did to try and stop the infinite building of damage, but yeah, it doesn't work like that anymore. You could use something like Beat of Might, which will give you a 30% damage bonus, or if you didn't pick up the Spirit Drape, there is the Mysterious Sliver that you can use, which will give you 34%, so that is going to be a little bit higher, and that is going to be based on willpower bonus, so this will actually increase. So Mysterious Sliver can actually outdamage that, because with Chains of Domination, you get bonus willpower per kill. So with buffs, this is going to end up doing more. One of the other things I've noticed is Rate of Fire gear does apply to Psyker staff. So at the moment, the Pyromancer staff, because it does a burst attack, is currently got a strike count of 11. Yeah, so something like Compensated Gloves, the Tactical Backpack, and Gloves of Rapid Desolation will increase it. I haven't seen which one did it. It used to be so much it could crash the game, but they might have buffed and changed that, or well, not buffed but patched, shall I say. So I'm not sure what's doing that. Secondary we've got here is Sanctified Staff, because as you build up Resolve, it has some insane AoEs, because this is going to be a mix of Telepath, Pyromancer, and Centric. So we'll go over some of the key bits that we like to do for the leveling, but this is sort of the gear. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to start off by putting on a Inspire and Linchpin onto yourself. Probably Linchpin first, then Inspire. You'll then do some attacks. You can then pop further and then do it again the other way around. Or you can buff yourself fire, bring it down first, and then you can go into it and get some more on there. With the Boots of Decay, you will rapidly decrease enemy deflection, so it will do a lot. So let's go over some of the key talents before I show off how this works in combat. When it comes to talents, one of the most important ones that you've got here is Running Gun. This can allow you to have 2 attack actions, which is why Soldier is more viable than Operative. Also the fact that Revel in Slaughter does apply to your Psych powers and your Staff powers, so the critical damage that you get from this applies directly into it, and the ballistic score increases you get with the use of Psychic Barrage will also apply to your powers. Those powers can't critically hit, staffs can. Firearm Mastery will also apply to your Psyker staff, so you can use that to increase your rate of fire if you pick that upgrade. You can take stuff like Psychic Barrage, which is obviously very useful. You'll want to get your Psyker Minoris upgrade and your other Psyker upgrades quicker than you would do if you were playing the melee build. Telepathy is still good to go into to get backdraft. Subtle Manipulation is more important on this build. Firearm Mastery 1 is very good, because until the soldiers in turn they get 4 MP and their attacks do not spend MP. Makes it very useful to be mobile because you're not an arc militant. Stuff like Enough Bullets for Everyone applies to everything. You're going to want to bit max out willpower. Going Fortress World is also very useful because the burst attacks, you can actually proc some of the burst fire stuff with like Hail of Bullets, though I haven't taken that on this version of the build, but maybe in the future I might update. Swift Slaughter is also useful to help. Now I've gone for the Firearm Mastery upgrade 4, which is until the end of soldier's turn, each of their area attacks deals additional damage equal to a number, and this is mostly for Firestorm. As far as I'm aware, that does apply to it, because Crowd Kill applies to Firestorm. But if you wanted to go for, say, Firestorm Mastery Upgrade 2, that's also acceptable. Or you could even take 3, but enemies aren't really going to dodge you, but Arm Penetration I don't think is going to be that necessary, but it is up to you at the end of the day. In Master Tactician, Tactical advantage is the main gimmick here, which is the Master Tactician gains 1 stack of tactical advantage for every 5 momentum gained by the Master Tactician or their allies. The Master Tactician begins combat with a number of tactical advantage stacks equals their fellowship. Now, we don't really go into fellowship, and the stats appeared quite low earlier, but that's because of combat addict. It will be higher in combat, and Steel Mind will also buff that further. Prestige advantage is also going to be good for a very big area attack, which we will use with our Sanctified Staff at the end, which is the Master Tactician empowers their next damage to deal 4% additional damage for every stack of tactical advantage of the Master Tactician has, and loses up to half their stacks of tactical advantage rounded up. This means that if you wanted to, there is a different item you could put into the next slot, which is the Master Tactician one. So again, that's another option for you there. I like to go into Santic Powers fairly early on and then start picking up some of the other talents. So stuff like Joint Offensive, which you get 1 stack of tactical advantage for every hit scored on enemies. So this will apply to each hit in a burst fire, which is why it's very useful to use burst fire and have burst fire allies, and why we have the Pyromancy Staff. Against all odds, we'll actually increase it based on the number of enemies. Linchpin, like I said, is going to be the one that you're going to want to put on your main carry so you can build up more stacks, and then you'll come back around to use Inspire. You don't have to go into it straight away, you can come into it later. Fire Within, because of burst fire, is going to be more likely to prop because we're going to get those criticals a little bit early and more often. Orchestrated Firestorm, you can use multiple times per turn, but you're going to have to be very careful how you plan out your party so you don't absolutely wipe each other out. Personal involvement is also quite useful because every enemy killed by the Master Tactician increases the Master Tactician's resolve, so we can stack that up for our abilities. Inspire is going to increase our damage. Very good to have, very useful. We're then going to get Brink of Death. Brink of Death is also another very useful one to us to help get our stuff up. In the Exemplar ranks, we take Degraded Defense first to get our damage up, along with Wreck and Ruin. Stacking the deck is going to be another way to obviously get up some more of those stacks pretty quickly, and we get some of the Santic stuff like Slam of Heroes. You can take Molten Beam and go into that, or you can stick purely to staffs and you can pick Shield and Hammer of the Emperor. So the 2 abilities that you take is going to be up to you there. I'd like to get Peak Condition at rank 5 because you can't take it earlier than that, and then we're going to pick up Heavy Armor we can. In this build, I do pick up Shield of the Emperor and Hammer of the Emperor, but you could go into other abilities. You could pick up Sensory Deprivation and get Psychic Assault if you wanted to from Telepath. Alternatively, you could get further. Dawn of Victory is another one that can be quite useful coming in here, along with the Heavy Armor, as I said, at rank 8. Hymns of Hatred, it applies to you and all allies. Sacred Rituals can sometimes refund AP, which is very good on fine style turns. Edge of Dawn is going to require you to get in close to enemies, which is why we took Subtle Manipulation. And Vital Points is going to help get up that damage, as well as stuff like Undisputed Advantage. And Combat Meditation is one that you could switch out if you want. But as you can see in the gameplay in the background here, very mobile, lots of damage, lots of shooting, and lots of Psyker powers. Any ways that you can increase your AP or refund stuff is going to be very useful on this build. However, it's not as mobile as the other builds because you don't really generate MP a lot, so you're going to want to be able to have range on it. So if you did want to take Second Sight earlier, or if you were thinking about skipping it, I would suggest not to. But as you can see by the route in the background here, this is sort of the combat loop that you'll see, and unlike normally, I have showed like full buff setup loops because I think it is important to use that with this build because you actually get a lot more of it by your allies buffing and creating momentum. Luckily, when you use the enhanced range, you can very easily pick up and clear the battlefield, as your Fire Within will be giving you lots of extra attacks, and because of the burst fires, you will be doing a lot of damage across this. So this is a build that is very playable from the get-go. The stats can end up going through the roof, and it's just a very strong damage dealer to have. And if you want to see a full breakdown of what this can really do, and you want to see builds, go back over this stuff, because this is stuff that I covered early on. It was one of my first big videos actually, but yeah, very strong build. Do highly recommend.